One of America's greatest values is our strong belief in the inherent worth of every human life. Human trafficking is a direct assault on this core value, and it affects millions of victims throughout the world. While many of us would like to believe that this issue isn't something that affects us, the sad truth is that human trafficking is a real problem plaguing each and every community here in the United States. Enough is enough. This week, the House took strong actions to stand up for the victims of human trafficking, passing tough bills to provide them protection and to target child predators. Let's work together to get these bills signed into law.
Cincinnati.com, Human Trafficking as Easy as Ordering a Pizza, written by Brad Wenstrup, June 6, 2017. U.S. Representative Brad Wenstrup, Republican, Columbia and Tuscaloosa, is a doctor and a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserves. It's just as easy as ordering a pizza to order a person. These haunting words, spoken by an undercover Daytona detective, encapsulates a fragment of both the horror and pervasiveness of human trafficking crisis facing our country in the digital age. It's everywhere because of the online environment, the detective said. There's no boundaries or limitations. It is true, with the rise of the internet, human trafficking has become one of the fastest growing businesses of organized crime in the world. The statistics are staggering. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security has estimated human trafficking generates billions annually in illegal profits around the globe, second only to drug trafficking. As many as 17,500 people may be trafficked in the United States every year, according to the Congressional Research Service, while approximately 100,000 American citizens may be victims of trafficking within the United States. It is happening in our backyard. Ohio ranks number 5 in the nation for the most human trafficking cases. Last year, 375 Ohio trafficking cases were reported from 1,352 calls to the national hotline, according to Polaris, a non-profit trafficking in America and across the world. These 2016 numbers are nearly 4 times those reported for 2013. Children and young people are particularly vulnerable as perpetrators increasingly manipulate advances in technology to lure their victims. One report cited 13-year-olds as the most common age in Ohio for youth to become victims of sex trafficking. These numbers are sickening, but it is important to remember that they are so much more than mere numbers. They are faces, names, individual stories. Behind each statistic is a human being who has been objectified and traded as a part of a cruel transaction. Each number represents a criminal that must be brought to justice. I really love what he is writing. But hope exists. In recent years, we've seen forward movement towards combating human trafficking here in Ohio and across the United States. A human trafficking task force was formed through the Ohio Attorney General's office to coordinate and utilize state, local, and federal law enforcement resources to combat these crimes and to bring offenders to justice. Last year, 103 people were arrested through the task force. In recent years, our state government has strengthened Ohio's laws protecting victims and punishing perpetrators, and cooperation among agencies has increased. Federal efforts have increased as well, and I am pleased that the administration is signaling its strong involvement in this fight. Just this past month, the White House hosted a bipartisan roundtable with lawmakers, anti-trafficking experts, and human trafficking victims to develop strategies and objectives to strengthen the federal government's fight against child trafficking and exploitation. These are promising steps towards progress, but much work remains to be done. We as Americans have a moral obligation to stand and fight such injustice. The exploitation and abuse of any human being, but especially young, innocent children, is an affront to our nation's founding values of life, liberty, human dignity, and the rule of law. Recently, Recently, during Combating Trafficking and Child Protection Week in Congress, the House of Representatives passed 12 bills to combat child abuse and exploitation. They make a range of much-needed reforms. The Child Protection Involvement Improvements Act, H.R. 695, ensures youth serving organizations have access to national background checks through the FBI's database for prospective employees or volunteers. Currently, too many youth serving organizations only have access to state-level background check systems, which can be dangerous gaps. The Put Trafficking Victims First Act, H.R. 2473, directs the Department of Justice to provide victims-centered training on investigation and processing human trafficking cases to law enforcement and government agencies on the federal and state and local level. The Trafficking Survivors Relief Act, H.R. 459, aims to ensure minors who are trafficked are treated as victims and not criminals, and given the opportunity for a fresh start. This is some really important stuff he's talking about. The bills also ensure investigation have more evidence, access to critical evidence necessary to stop child predators, strengthen tools for prosecution and perpetrators, increase the requirements for lifelong registration and reporting for offenders, and better equipped law enforcement to protect children from harm. All these were bipartisan bills passed by bipartisan majorities. Today we face a mirage of challenges, many of which polarize our country strictly along party lines. The issue is different. The protection of our children and all human life is an American priority that transcends politics and serves as a pillar of our national identity. Washington can agree. We, the people, can agree. No human should ever have to experience such hideous exploitation. We must stand and act, and we must do it together. Amen. Twitter, Brad Wenstrup, 3 hours ago. You never expected a baseball field in America to feel like being back in a combat zone in Iraq, but this morning I did. 3 hours ago. Capitol Police and emergency responders reacted swiftly and courageously. We are grateful for their presence. 3 hours ago, I urged the nation to keep Representative Scalise and all injured in their prayers today. Amen. He is a U.S. Representative for the people of Ohio's 2nd District, physician, Army Reserves, a dad, and lifelong Ohioan.